Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to make this succinct and wake you up a little bit before you all leave, right? My name is Melina Ksor. I am the chair of the Community Advisory Council at MDA. I'm also a Duke Clinical Research Coordinator in obesity prevention among adolescents in the pediatrics realm. Today, I'm going to be talking about community advisory councils and boards. Show of hands if you know what that is. Okay. We got some people. That's fantastic. Well, if you don't know what it is, this is a definition I pulled out of a CDC blog, because, I'm not going to make up my own definition. Community advisory boards or councils often serve as a source of leadership in partnerships of community-based participatory research, which I think some of the community members mentioned earlier, and provide structures to guide the partnership's activities. What does that mean? Well, I kind of love mnemonics. Like, it's great to kind of remember what things mean. It's how I used to study in undergrad and grad school. And I came up with one late in the night because I was like, what do you think the audience would like? Well, CACs and CABs essentially serve as a resource to help researchers unblur their perceptions with communities. A lot of us here are educated in some forms, have knowledge of many communities that we are interested in, but that doesn't mean we're experts. Shoot, I don't consider myself an expert in my own community. When we have community advisory councils that are composed of people of various perceptions and backgrounds and ways of life, age groups, as well as their own identity, we get a really great idea of the community that we're looking for. So what does UNBLUR stand for? What do CACs and CABs do? They understand their community needs and cultural norms. There are specific cultural norms that are unique to various Asian communities. We are not a monolith. And even then, within Montagnard communities, tribes have different customs and values that they value, as well as needs that they often may be underlooked by researchers. Most research done in Montagnard communities are with Cherai and the Bay communities. Bunong and Kahal and Panhad and other Montagnard communities aren't often included in that research. This could be a potential issue when you're wanting to find resources and navigate culturally sensitive topics that you may not actually be aware of. Another thing that CACs help do is that they bring important concerns, opinions, and resources. There is so much that goes on internationally, locally, even somewhere else in the United States that are impacting our communities. And no one knows about their community better than people a part of it. You're not going to find it in news articles. You're not going to have it broadcasted on radio stations. It's going to be by word of mouth. It's going to be told in churches. It's going to be told when they congregate for birthday parties or weddings about things that are going on. Did you know that there's another crackdown in Vietnam right now where they're looking at people as terrorist groups, and oftentimes Montagnard men are being targeted? This right now is causing a lot of Montagnard men to be very afraid, even though some are United States citizens, to travel abroad. CACs and CABs also provide language resources. When we think about grant writing and we think about how can we fund interpreters, translation, we have to think about where that's housed and how we can properly do it without delaying payments, without delaying the times that we're kind of, when you're pushing off payments and you're saying like, oh, we'll get it to you soon. Sorry, we're doing this thing through the institutions. Well, CACs and CABs will provide you oftentimes great solutions to that. MDA is a great vendor that you can write in your grant that MDA will eventually directly pay their interpreters that way, as opposed to finding individual community members to help you navigate certain types of translations. CACs and CABs also unites research to communities by building rapport and trust to establish a relationship. Even though a lot of youth members may not be as active, when elderly or older community members see the youth, there's always this sense of pride and this sense of understanding that I trust them a little bit more, or I trust what they're bringing to me, as opposed to just coming in there with an older, Montagnard person who may be established. And sometimes that could be a flip side. And it all depends once you consult with a CAC or a CAB. Now, unfortunately, not all communities, not all Asian communities have this resource. So that's a wonderful opportunity for many of us researchers to maybe potentially help develop among these communities that we're interested in or working with. And they're also a reliable source of contact for community and researchers. When you're wanting to find really unique and niche populations, when you're wanting to research about things that you're really unsure about, even though you may have expertise in pediatrics, Montagnard youth are very different than Hmong youth. Montagnard's youth are going to be very different from Karenni folks or people from Cambodia. So what does that mean? You want to source the correct representation. And oftentimes CACs are diverse in which they're not only just one voice. Like, I love to talk, but something that I have struggled with being a part of CAC is that some CAC members oftentimes don't feel almost confident in their voice, because in research, in industry, in academia, they're treated as such. And although I do have higher education, I always tell my mom she's the smartest person I know. And she's never been to school. So when you think about these types of things and you think about all of these unique circumstances and you want to go back into your data, you want to community check and you want to make sure that that data is correct, this is where you go. This is where you answer those questions multiple of you guys had. How do I do it? How do I source these correct and reliable, community members? That's a CAC. Actually, Rasuin is my co-chair. He didn't mention that, but I wanted to highlight that. But he's my co-chair, and we live two very different experiences. Similar, but different. And I think what's very important to take home today is that when you're wanting to figure out these blurry or unclear information, whether it's during grant writing, whether it's about how should I properly compensate these community members that I want to work with, don't just do it with your preceptors. Don't just do it with your investigators. Don't just do it with your financial institutions. Source those community members that you're wanting to work with and ask them, because they know their community and what their needs are better than what the researchers are wanting to define. And again, I think I wasn't really clear as to what CACs and CABs consist of. Oftentimes, they are elder leaders, interpreters, healthcare workers, church members, sometimes youth leaders, people who do work in cultural preservation, and sometimes just a regular mom who stays at home and takes care of her baby. So we want to make sure that you understand that CACs aren't just people in academia and higher education. They are your community members. They are what you're essentially wanting to have a good representation and insight to. And that's what I think most organizations and hopefully MDA can achieve as we're slowly building our CAC in these coming years. Yeah.
Can I say one thing, if you don't mind? The Community Advisory Council, I just want to recognize this. Montagnard Big Association adopted this with a proposal that we made, and my Dr. Lurkis, I made a proposal to her that we needed to if she could help us fund bringing this group together. So just in time before we shut down before COVID, put together the very first iteration of an advisory. We had a grad student work with us and put this council together just before we shut down before COVID. And it's grown since then. So some of what you hear going on and what we've learned is how do we work within the council, and there's still room for people in there to participate as well as professional development. So community advisory councils are great places for professional development for youth, but for intergenerational communication, because they're two sides of this culture, the past and present colliding. So they help researchers in understanding what you are. And I always talk about the tripwires of doing this kind of community work. You will step on them every now and then, and CACs help. So I just want to put that in there. And thank you, Dr. Lurkis, because this was a gamble and it really paid off. We learned a lot. So I just want to, and so others in the room, this is a great way. If you're looking for, well, what can I do with some extra money? You can work with and form a council and help.
I invite the other community, Asian communities here, I think the Afghan community, the Karenni, to come up and speak on their own personal experiences working with research and kind of the struggles that they are having hard time to navigate when it comes to voicing these concerns.
Hi everyone. Thank you so much for presenting on CACs and CABs in the community. I think it's great that we get to learn more about what resources that we have in our community. And I want to share with you all what we have as a part of the Cambodian community here in Greensboro, North Carolina. So hi everyone, my name is Neang, and I am the board secretary for the Cambodian Cultural Center of North Carolina. And before I present, I do want to ask you all to look at the people in front of you and behind you and say, hi, my name is blank. So go ahead and do that. The Cambodian Culture Center of North Carolina, also known as CCC of NC, we are based at the Wat Greensboro Buddhist Center here in Greensboro, North Carolina. So if you didn't know, we do have a local Buddhist temple that is Cambodian based, but we have various Buddhist temples in Greensboro actually and nearby as well. So that's a good tip for y'all. And we are the first Cambodian culture center in Guilford County as well. So we serve a community numbering around 4,000 people in the Triad area of North Carolina. And the majority of our members are refugees, survivors, and descendants of the Cambodian genocide and the Vietnam War as well. So me particularly, I'm not actually from Cambodia, I'm from Vietnam, but I'm part of this part of Vietnam that used to be Cambodia. So it's called the Khmer Krom, which is basically Cambodian bottom. So it's like the bottom part of Vietnam that borders Cambodia as well. And some families have been in the United States for decades. Some Cambodian families have been in the United States for decades, while others are continuing to immigrate here today. So despite their long residences, many families remain isolated and they struggle with integration into American society. So we see that with the new word that I learned today, low-income Asian American communities of refugee origin. And that's what it's pretty prevalent here that we see. So who we are, this is our board members that we have, and the CCC of NC, we work together to build communities across North Carolina. So we're run and led primarily by second-generation Cambodian Americans, and our mission is to help preserve the Cambodian cultural heritage and identity among the younger generations of Cambodians who were born in America. So that is what our mission is. And the way that we do that is by connecting both the youth and the elderly together through programs and events that we have. So where is Cambodia on the map? So Cambodia is in Southeast Asia, bordering 3 countries, so Thailand, Laos, and Vietnam. And then again, there is a part of that where I'm technically from is in Vietnam, but it's bordering Cambodia as well. So that is where Khmer Krom is. So this is part of the data information that we shared earlier, where sometimes there might be data that could be better explained. So this is one of the where we have like a total U.S. Cambodian population at around 259,000 in the year 2020, and then we have in North Carolina around 5,400 Cambodian people in 2020. But how accurate is that data? I'm not sure. So that's a limitation that we have within statistics in our community. And here are some challenges that we're facing amongst the Cambodian community here in Greensboro, North Carolina. We took the survey. It doesn't show much, I know, but I'm just gonna, show you a theme that's actually been happening throughout this whole presentation that we've been seeing. The top 3 issues that our communities are facing include medical and healthcare assistance, immigration and citizenship, so particularly the legal portion of that. And then 3, youth resources. What resources can we provide to our youth members? So those are the top 3 biggest challenges facing Cambodian communities in North Carolina. And then another one that's also very important is mental health support as well. And something that's also was significant included employment, jobs, affordable housing, and rental, especially in this market that we're seeing. I'm also a real estate agent, so I understand that this housing market it's interesting. That's a good word for it. It's interesting. And then interpretation and translation services as well, because there's not a lot of folks, I guess, from the Cambodian community that continue to, like I said, share our languages and stuff. So that's why we have to ensure that we have those translation services available, especially to our elder folks in the community as well. So this is a little bit about the projects that we're doing in order to help unify our youth and our elderly folks. So this includes the traditional dance program. So our dance program, we have 3 different sets of ages. First ages is from, I would say, elementary school grade ages. The second portion would be what you would see typical in high school, up to high school ages. And then the third is actually 21 plus age group. And I'm actually one of the dancers. So if you see me somewhere in there, I'm one of the dancers as well. And this program, how we do this is we have dedicated teachers who will come every single Sunday to the Wat Greensboro Temple and will teach us every single Sunday. Each of these different age groups as well. So the amount of dedication that we have, at least for the traditional arts program, is very important to note as well. And then we also have traditional dance program expansion. So some of the things that we've been doing this past year included making our own jewelry. So this is us on the floor of someone's house, actually putting together jewelry for our costumes because we are not able to, we didn't want to spend the money that we have buying it straight from Cambodia. So we decided to make our own and spray paint it with gold, and it worked out. And that's what we actually wore to our performance right there for Hope for Hunger Fest, which is in the Carolina Theater. And then other things that we also have included how to dress the costumes for our dance groups as well. So these are just some of the ways in which we preserve our cultural history and share that between the elderly and the youth members that we have. Next, we have Southeast Asian New Year, which is something that more of the community hopefully would know about, which includes not only just Cambodian, but Thai, Lao, and Myanmar as well. So Southeast Asian New Year is a celebration where we get to come together at the local temples, wherever they are in the North Carolina area, and just have a weekend of fun where we get to get some food and also present to the community what events and items that we have, and as well as sharing our religious customs as well. Another program that we also included most recently was a community cleanup. So what we did for this community cleanup was we gathered, we canvassed the temple to see what issues that we had with cleaning, and then figuring out, okay, let's gather up a group of volunteers, our friends, whoever, and let's figure out when we'd want to clean up the temple together, and then what tools we need, and what we could do to beautify the temple. So this was This was a 2-day project that we had on various months, showing that we sort of helped clean up the temple, and we had volunteers as well set up food too. In order to also reduce the barriers between elderly and the youth, we also had traditional cooking classes as well. So with this traditional cooking class, I believe it was bilingual too. So we had an elder speak both in Khmer and in English. And here she just taught us how to make a traditional noodle dish that we have in Cambodia. And though we only held a class here, we're looking to host more classes as well and partner with various elder folks in our community. And in addition to partnering together for the community, we also have a gardening project as well, where we're again beautifying our temple, which is on a little bit over an acre of land, and just ensuring that we have the ability to cut trees and just beautify the temple even more. And these two programs, language and music classes, are something that we've been trying to develop. The issue that we have with this is funding, because with music class, we have the instruments. They are from Cambodia, but they need a revamp. They need to be cleaned up. They need to be restrung. And that's some of the issues that we've come across. But again, as you can see, it's mainly the elders who are playing these instruments. We want to have our youth members also know how to play these instruments and pass it down as well. So a music class is something that we've been trying to develop as well, and language too. So we actually did have a language class. I believe it was a little bit before the pandemic or a little bit after the pandemic where we had this language class. It was in person and it was not as successful, but something that we've been interested in developing was having a virtual language class, so where people could virtually learn Khmer. We're also doing a cultural remodeling project as well, where our new dance system would be held in this house that we have at the local Wat Greensboro temple. So these are just a few of the many projects that we're aiming to build, grow, and develop as we continue on throughout the decades that we have within our community. Another focus that we're looking into is the youth leadership program. So in terms of this youth leadership program, what we're looking into is actually, we're talking about oral histories as well, and seeing if we could develop an internship with our youth members to sort of just get this program jump started within the Cambodian community and give them an opportunity to have that as a project. So that's something that we're looking into. We're also looking into youth leadership board, because if the youth can just come together and create their ideas of what they want to do within our community, go ahead, do it. We'll give you the resources, but that's some of the projects that we're looking to develop as well. And in conclusion, these are one of the many projects and passions that we have within our Cambodian community. And the thing about something that I do want to point out is in the first photo, it shows a cleaning project that we did on July 2023. And then the second photo was taken on February 25th, 2024, so a couple months after. And it shows how, though we did have a group of volunteers clean up the temple, unfortunately, we did have the same sections of the temple having disregarded unwanted furniture there as well. So then we had to bring another group of volunteers to clean up sort of like that same sections as well. So this just goes to show that progress is not linear. Progress is ups and downs and having to go back and fix it again. And I think that is a takeaway that I would like to take with you all today.
I'm going to invite Rohan from the Bhutanese community to talk about how their community is doing mental health concerns in the Bhutanese community.
I want to thank everyone for your patience, and I'm so glad to see everyone here. Me and my brother, my name is Rohan, his name is Babin. We are representing the Bhutanese community of North Carolina.
Hello, my name is Grady. I'm also part of the Bhutanese community. I am Divya Thapa.
Hi, I'm Sunil Pradhan.
Babin, Basnet.
Let's begin. As Mr. Andrew Yongue said, a lot of communities that have not been formed formally. We are one of these communities. We don't officially have an organization, but we are working on that. Who are the Bhutanese people? So we are originally from a country called Bhutan, and we were sent to Nepal as refugees because of an ethnic cleansing that happened in Bhutan, which sought to eliminate anyone of Nepali origin. We unfortunately fell into this category, and we had to flee through this middle area you see of India to cross into Nepal. This was a very treacherous task for many immigrants, many migrants, and many lost their lives and sustained horrible injuries through this track. We settled in the southeastern part of Nepal into refugee camps, where we stayed there for over a decade as we sought to see immigration towards other countries. Through the international migration company called IOM, we were able to relocate all over the world. As you can see, over 100,000 Bhutanese refugees resettled into all areas of the world, including North America, Europe, Australia, and New Zealand, of which a major part of my family still lives in Adelaide, Australia. So that's wonderful. Over 10,000 people came to specifically North Carolina. And in North Carolina, here in the Triad, around 3,000 people settled here. This number may be incorrect because of many different factors such as education and citizenship standings. So this may not be accurate, but it's a rough estimate. Here in the Triad, we have faced many struggles that not only include our migration here and our ability to relocate here and understand the cultural barriers, figure out employment issues, and getting a stable education. We have a very large mental health crisis, and of which most of our community are not aware of, because we don't typically acknowledge mental health. And this has become a very big problem because there are so many people that are struggling with these issues but don't know how to identify it and don't know how to seek out help. So many of us know mental health as being a state of well-being that affects how people think, feel, and act. Within our community, there are many reasons for these for mental health. These issues include substance abuse, depression, anxiety, and PTSD. Through the treacherous task that we had to do to come from Bhutan to Nepal, that had a very big toll on the mental health of many migrants. And this, along with separation from family members, loss of citizenship, there are still people today that are still trying to get citizenship after being here for almost a decade. And lack of local support. As you know, we have a very big culture barrier. And this has stopped us from getting support from people here in the United States and getting access to health, getting access to education, and getting help in any other aspect of our lives, which include housing, our bills, food, anything else that could impact your day-to-day life. And as I've stated before, financial difficulties, unemployment difficulties, cultural barriers, and insufficient help from charities or other agencies have prevented us from standing ground in this country.
Hello, everyone. I'm Babin Basnet. I'll be taking over now. So, continuing off with what is mental health, our community, which has been resettled from Nepal, we have many challenges that we're coping with. That is because we have left behind settled life. We started with starting a new family in a foreign country is very challenging. Statistics is pretty hard to get for our community because it's very scattered around. So there was a survey done in 2009 to 2012, which stated that 21% of our community members suffered from depression. 19% of them suffered from symptoms of anxiety, 4.5 post-traumatic stress, and 3% were suicidal tensions. So mental health plays a critical role in our well-being in the Bhutanese community. Addressing the mental health needs for Bhutanese refugees is essential for their successful integration into the American life. This can overcome our high rates of suicide, which is one thing we observed in the 2009 to 2012 survey. By supporting these mental health, we can promote and encourage healing within our community. So how can KB Reynolds, overlooked by MDA, help our community? One thing we could do is we could host awareness programs. We could invite health specialists to host sessions with experts that could help our community members that are not well informed in those mental health illnesses. And we could organize workshops so we could all come together and like learn about what are these challenges that we could face and how we could move on forward with it. We could do educational programs for the uneducated, because we suffer from a lot of uneducated people who have like a whole their life has been uprooted, so like they feel like there's no chance of them getting education in this land. They're not really confident enough in themselves. So we could organize like community education groups which could focus on elderly and the adults who missed formal education. Another thing that we would like to do is we would like to help and take part in blood donations. Our community can take part and come together to educate our community members, which we have a stigma towards blood drives. Many of our community members, they feel like giving blood to donating blood is like, it's kind of there's not a good image to it. Yeah, it's like a crime kind of. It's totally it's mixed with culture, religion, so there it goes back. But so we would like to remove this stigma from our community through education and taking part in drives. Another thing that we could do is obviously food and hygienic support for our community. Many of them face problems that they cannot get food and hygienic supplies such as soap and sanitizing equipments. So we could help the needy with food and hygiene. Our community members are actually experts in farming because our homeland, they were all grew up as farmers. So farming is something that our community members all look forward to engaging in. This could improve their well-being because it could give them a sense of hope to come together and work together in land, grow crops, and also take part in like donating those crops for consumption as well. Our overall goal is to bridge the gap that is between parents and their children. So the parents have no education, they have no knowledge as much as the students who are being raised or who have grown up in the land. So parents are like kind of oblivious to what's going on in the child's life. So we would like to come together and bridge that gap between the parents and the students, so they could communicate better, so the parents could know what the students are heading into, all that. That's a great question. Yeah, that goes back to our history. In the late 1980s and the early 1990s, there was an ethnic cleansing in Bhutan, which the Bhutanese government wanted everyone who were settled in Bhutan to dress like them, to talk like them. Our descendants who were already who were living in Bhutan were farmers brought from Nepal, like our ancestors. So we were farmers brought from Nepal to Bhutan to grow crops and help out the Bhutanese economy. After that, we lived. Our grandparents lived in Bhutan for years, and their generations as well. And after that, in the late 1980s, the government wanted one nation, which was like their motto. They said one nation, so they wanted everything as like one culture, right? They didn't like the diversity that was happening. And the people who chose to adapt to the Bhutanese culture, they're all residing in Bhutan. There's still many people that still live in Bhutan, our families included. So after the ethnic cleansing, many people who chose to adapt the Bhutanese dress code, Bhutanese language as their own, they chose to stay in Bhutan, and the people who did not, because they were speaking the Nepalese language in Bhutan and they were wearing Nepalese clothes in Bhutan because that's what they grew up wearing. So they chose to leave the country, and they were forced out, actually. Yeah, they were forced out of the country to be refugees. And we went to Nepal thinking Nepal would take us in, but they didn't really have too much money or land to give us. So we sought help with the UN and everyone.
To answer your question more clearly, the cultural unification that Bhutan went through is the reason why they were able to claim themselves as the happiest country in Asia, which statistically is true, but as he just explained, there's a lot more that goes into that.
Thank you very much for everyone's time.
Thank you. So my name is Mir Habibullah Akhgar, and shortly you can say Habib, and I'm from Afghanistan. So I just want to present a short case or presentation of Afghan community who are in Greensboro. So actually, I can say that the association or the community is still not well organized or established. So we are just in the processing to register and create this association. So I have just collect some raw data for this presentation. So I'll start with the background. The newly established Afghan community in Trait is a vibrant and diverse group. Over 1,000 Afghan refugees have resettled since the fall of the Afghan government in 2021, with approximately 3,500 Afghans arriving in North Carolina during past years. Past years means during this 3 years. So these community members are facing numerous challenges and having limited access to the opportunity as they integrate into American society. As of recent report, Gulfport County, where the Greensboro is located, has the second highest number of Afghan refugees in North Carolina. We have listed some challenges here just as a bullet, so we can discuss furthermore later on challenges. So we will start with the language barriers. It will affect their ability to access service, including health, education, any kind of service. So it will affect to find employment, job, and also integrate into the community. So with the employment, we have listed some bullet, like some sub-bullet, which is difficult to match their skill and qualification. So, you know, if a migrant have any qualification in their country, it's difficult to match with that skill and qualification here. For example, I can say my example. I was a medical doctor with a long experience with the health or public health, like 20 years. When I came here, it was very difficult, and still it is difficult for me to find a job according to my background. So professional credential recognition, it's another issue that you cannot recognize or register or you cannot use from your degree that you have from back home, or lack of work experience in the United States, another issue. So access to service, navigating the healthcare, education, and other social services, or unfamiliar with how those systems work in the United States. housing, finding affordable, suitable, and room in a safe area, it's also a challenge. Education for both children and adult. So since the education system is different and to adapt in the curricula, because there's a big difference between curricula here in Afghanistan. So it's also, or teaching style, it's also a challenge. Mental health, so we can say it's a big problem. Legal and migration issue. So legal and migration system is navigating in US. It's a little complicated, and for newcomers, it takes time and need effort or support to apply for their migration status and also bring their family. Most of the Afghans who came here, their families is still there. They just came along, and you know the situation of Afghanistan, that in one day everything changed, and most of the people, even from their job, they came to the airport and left the country, and still their family is there. Community support, so limited resources, an issue, infrastructure to support community building activities can make it difficult for Afghans to connect with other communities. So way forward, we have listed some of the collaborative effort from the different organizations. So we have listed here government agency, non-profit organization, community group, and Afghan community of Triad. It will offer some potential solutions. So if we have collaboration from these organizations, so we can solve or address some of these challenges. So we have listed some solutions for the challenge as well. So for language and education program, sure, English language classes, cultural orientation for employment, job training and placement, credential recognition, and access to service, health access, social service. For education support, so tutoring and monitoring, adult education. And for mental health and well-being, so trauma-informed care, community support group, legal for the legal immigration assistance, so legal aid, and or if we have some orientation workshop or community workshop for the migrant to know about their right for housing, so we can support or looking for support to providing affordable, suitable, and safe housing for the people, and at least temporary house for those newcomers and those people that they are facing with housing problem. And building community, so community center, establishing community centers, cultural activities, social gathering, or resource distribution for the networking opportunity. So we're proposing to creating operation opportunities to do event, workshop, and social activities. Policy and structural support, so we can looking for the government program, ensuring that federal, state, and local government programs are adequately funded and accessible to Afghan refugees and migrants, and collaborating with the non-profit organization, encouraging or collaboration between non-profit faith-based organization and community group to pool resources and provide comprehensive support to this community. So this was the short presentation that we could prepare for this event. And so how we can link this challenge and solution with the Afghan community. We know that for some of these challenges, there is service available, but the Afghan community So since they have a language barrier and they have problem with the access, they cannot receive this service. So that's why we are looking to establish association by the name of Afghan Association or whatever name that we can find in the future to connect these people or to introduce this available service for them and encourage them to be able to receive or to be connect to receive this service. So I know that there is education system. We know that there is a health system. There is employment service to different organizations like Resettlement Agency, another organization. We know that there is migration service, but most of the people don't know how to find and how to connect with these. So if we have a well-organized, established association, so we can be like a bridge between these providers and the Afghan community. So I don't want to take more time, so I will end my presentation here. So if there is any question, I'm ready to answer. Thank you. Thanks for your attention.
Before I invite the commentators, I just want to highlight one thing and thank the presenters from the Cambodian, the Bhutanese, as well as the Afghan communities. These are very, very astonishing needs that are highlighted by essentially community leaders. These are their actual needs. As I reflect on a lot of research that many people do when you interview like an elder adult or you interview a child, they have perceived needs. And these perceived needs aren't always, reflective of the community. If you do know Montagnards, you do know they're very grateful. And as they mentioned about the Summit apartments, even though it was cockroach infested, even though it may have appliance issues, most Montagnards would have said, well, I had a roof that I was under, so I have no complaints. So when you look at these leaders that are speaking up with you guys today, these are the members that you want a part of their CAC. These are the people you want to fund and have some type of sustained and permanent position within their communities to have that ongoing relationship between researchers, institutions, and their communities. So again, they did a lot of amazing work, and I just want to applaud all of the work that our wonderful community leaders have done, because otherwise many of these voices would have been unheard and not been presented today without their work. So one big up.
My name is Christina Yongue. This is my first week in a new job role. Thank you. But I hope to serve the community here and all the things. My heart is very heavy because of the needs that I hear and because I'm a community advocate. But yes, I'm the director of community engagement and impact with the Cone Health Foundation. And for 8 years, I was a faculty member at UNCG here in the Department of Public Health Education. And I'm so honored to see several of my students shining as they are doing phenomenal things. And so also want to tie in how important history is. So I loved hearing the intergenerational history that's being shared. My history, my father, he served in the Army in Korea and Vietnam. And so that's the connection that I have. But in addition to that, I'm very much an advocate for equity and equality. And so what I feel like I should do as a commentator is just to be a listener, to reflect what I heard. And then also I have some more questions. And so in talking about Cone Health Foundation, so again, first weekend, so I cannot represent all of the history, of course, and the things that they've done prior to my coming in, but I look forward to being an advocate within their organization for different types of grants that are needed. I think it was very wise what Andrew was saying about the need for 501c3s because that can be a barrier for funding. And so I hear that very loudly. And that's one of the things that the Cone Health Foundation has done in the past. They fund advocacy grantees, they fund health equity nurturing grantees, they fund legacy grantees. And so there's a lot of different opportunities there. And so what I wanted to reflect that I heard as a commentator. So I heard the importance of unblurring the process. And so I have some questions around how we can better unblur the process with requests for proposals. I heard about the incredible work. I've been to the Cambodian temple, and I love seeing, more of what's been happening there. And so I have some questions around that. And I heard that progress is not linear. It's not up and down. It's cyclical. And so you continue to have continued changes that are needed. I also heard about the mental health challenges and the trauma and the healing that's continued to be needed and why there's continued trauma, the loss and the separation. I also heard about all of the levels of needs, and especially in the area of employment and opportunities where people have expertise in whether it's in farming or it's in medical services, but then not having the opportunities here to be compensated for the skills that you have. And so I heard all of these things. And so I have some questions on top of my observations. So my questions are, I want to know better, how can we unblur the request for proposals and hearing more from the community advisory councils and boards? I very much am an advocate of those being organized. How can we better unblur the request for proposal process? How can we unblur the reporting back process when people do receive the funding and then you want to share, what's been done? I see it all in the presentation, so this is a way to do it. But as a foundation, how can they do that? And then making recommendations to our sisterly, brotherly foundations that are also giving out funds in the triad. We can all do a better job of that. And then how can we celebrate beyond the data? Because this session was about, what, in addition to research, what defines giving back appropriately. So in addition to showing your research findings, you can have facilities and centers created and what is better for the youth? What are the examples? How can we celebrate those examples better so that it's beyond the research? So research is important. We want to see improvements in health, improvements in mental health, but we also want to see some sustained concrete things that are given back to the community. So how can we do that better and celebrate that together? Because the thing is, it's exhausting work to work on your mental health and to work on making improvements in all of these very important areas. We have to celebrate and stay encouraged and stay hopeful about the process because it is a lot to manage. And I'm also interested very much as a woman myself in supporting the women, and as a mother, the women in the youth development program. So that can be coupled in with the research work, but I want to see how we can do that to support the councils because they are pivotal. And those are some of my comments right now, but I'm open to the conversation.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Well, congrats on starting your new job. I am coming upon my job anniversary this month. So I work at NCAT, North Carolina Asian Americans Together. I'm not Chavi. Chavi is my colleague and my boss. She's taking a very much needed wellness and rest day, so I'm here in her stead. We are a 501c3, and I feel like Andrew set us up pretty well with that need for 501c3s. And I wanted to reiterate this quote that I wrote down word for word from Melina, because it really just rings true to everything that I feel we as we as nonprofit workers, we as academics, we as people here in the community have been honored to hear from one another. No one knows more about the community than those who are a part of it. And as someone who writes grants and who, regularly petitions private public foundations for grant monies and for funding, this is something that they are constantly asking in those applications. They're all asking things like, how do you center the communities that you serve? How are community members made decision makers in your organization's work? Now, with North Carolina Asian Americans Together being a civic engagement organization, this means that we are concerned with things like building power through year-round, well-informed, habitual civic participation. That also necessarily means that we don't have the time to work with direct actions. We don't have times for direct services. We don't have time or capacity for things that you folks are doing, that members of smaller ethnic communities are doing directly with your folks. So while our organization works on things like voting and leadership development and community investment, such as the Asian Solidarity and Action Project, which are currently interpreters so wonderfully told us about earlier today, such as we also work with research and polling to look at and address the things that a lack of disaggregated data about Asian Americans in North Carolina have done for our community, have done to our communities. And I think he's gone, but no, there he is, as Nathan brought up earlier today, talking about like the absence of the Asian figure in all of these census and polling datas. We're focused on helping all of our community partners, and Sal, I'm going to shout out our wonderful, beautiful programs director here is able to tell you folks more about our community partners network if you're so interested in applying for that. But I believe the Cambodian Association of North Carolina has been a community partner for us. The Montagnard Association has been a very, very important community partner for us so that we can help turn the everyday lived experiences and the pain that a lot of Asian Americans feel into actionable results. We can turn this into policy. We can be the kind of trusted messengers for y'all to speak to legislators and representatives at the state or at the local level, at the state level. Not to get too political here, but if anyone here is able to vote and has not yet registered, we can also help you with that. So want to reiterate how very thankful, how very grateful we are to have been a part of this and listening to all of your stories.